From Rory McIlroy's spectacular collapse at the 2011 Masters to the shocking stroke that marked Phil Mickelson's lost US Open. Sometimes golf is filled with drama and meltdowns. These are all the biggest meltdowns in PGA history, starting with Rory's big fumble. Oh boy, this was Rory's tournament to lose, and he did so in colossal style. You see, in 2011, a 21-year-old Rory McIlroy entered the final round at Augusta National with an advantage. He appeared prepared to win his first major competition, but he had a rocky beginning from which he never quite recovered. Truth be told, Carl Schwartzel's masterful 66 during the final round of the 2011 Masters competition deserves all the praise, so I'm not taking anything away from it. Rory had started the day 4 strokes in front, but as he reached the back 9, his advantage had been cut to 1 stroke. He then lost 6 strokes in 3 holes, shooting triple on the 10th, bogeying on the 11th, and then making a 4-putt double bogey on the 12th. The collapse was complete after 1 more par at the 15th hole for good measure. How the mighty fall! Okay, the Northern Irishman wasn't completely to blame. Only 41 players who held at least a share of the 54-hole lead have won the green jacket. At least McIlroy got even by winning the US Open later in the year. Yup, he made a stunning comeback at the following major, capturing the 2011 US Open at Congressional by 8 strokes. Now, Dustin Johnson's had his fair share of meltdowns. He just needed a par on his final hole to win his first major championship. Instead, he bogeyed the last hole while holding a 1-shot advantage, tying him for first and setting up a shootout. Even though he had a strong record at Pebble Beach and was in the lead going into the final round of the 2010 US Open, Dustin admitted he was still nervous about this one. And on that unlucky day, his game fell apart after just 2 holes. The emotional strain led to a total breakdown. It was at Whistling Straits. DJ made birdies on the 16th and 17th holes to take a 1-shot lead, but his approach on the 18th ended up in a waste area. He hit his shot to the green while surrounded by spectators, then scampered for bogey to enter a playoff with Martin Kaymer and Bubba Watson. But behind the 18th green, he was informed that he'd actually grounded his club in the sand, in violation of Rule 13.4, and adding 2 more strokes to his total. He wasn't the only one though. 2 noteworthy collapses happened at Whistling Straits during the 2010 PGA Championship. One was Dustin's, and the other was Nick Watney's, which was a lot worse. He entered the final round with a 3-shot advantage, but fell apart right away during the action and scored a 43 on the front 9 and double bogeyed the opening hole. Watney was 11 over par for the day when he arrived at the 15th green. He finished the final round with 2 late birdies to close with an 81, moving him from first on the leaderboard all the way down to 18th at the end of the competition. Oopsies! But wait, I'm not done with Dustin Johnson, who was unlucky yet again in 2015. He had a 12-foot putt for eagle and his first major victory on the last green at the US Open, and he missed it. Okay, it happens. Then he needed 4 more feet to beat Jordan Spieth in a playoff, but he also missed that. His final score was 4 under, which is especially disappointing, given that he scored a 65 in the opening round of the competition to take the lead. And even though his 2016 US Open victory at Oakmont was a 3-point victory to make up for it, his 2015 collapse was shocking to say the least. Anyway, it seems like 2010 was a year of meltdowns, as another happened with Hunter Mahan at Ryder Cup. To be honest, facing Graham McDowell at the 2010 Ryder Cup would have been challenging for anyone, let alone a guy from the American team. Hunter Mahan, who hadn't played well overall at the end of the tournament, was given the very tough job. Not sure how, but yes, Mahan was so ashamed of himself that he broke down in tears in front of the media. This was after his mishandled pitch gave the Europeans the win. But guess what? Mahan's teammates and surprisingly the American media supported him. I think they all understood the pressure he was in, which people were reminded of in the 2016 Masters. Jordan Spieth won the Masters, and when he made a triumphant comeback to Augusta the following year, everyone was waiting for the Wonder Kid to make the next crazy move. In the final round, the youngster had an advantage over Englishman Danny Willett, even though he'd been his usual dominant self for the majority of the competition. But then the nerves probably set in. Spieth recorded back-to-back bogeys, a quadruple bogey, and even hit one of his pitches into the water. As one of the most public and heartbreaking meltdowns in PGA Tour history, his body language at the end of the round was comparable to Hunter Mahan's. Poor guy. He still didn't have it as bad as Adam Scott though. His 4-bogey run at Royal Lytham over the final 4 holes was especially shocking and agonizing to watch. I mean, it was so unexpected and came from a player who was incredibly famous and for good reason, and one who appeared to have won the match with a long birdie putt on the 14th. In the end, Ernie Els prevailed by 1 stroke due to a combination of poor shot selection and nerves. Fortunately for Scott fans, the Australian quickly recovered to take home the 2013 Masters title. Whew! Now, if you think I'm not going to mention Tiger Woods, you're wrong. He's had 2 of the most memorable meltdowns in PGA history. From 1998 to 2005, the ex-world's best player made the cut in 142 straight PGA Tour competitions. That trend was put to the test at the 2006 US Open, which Woods competed in despite his father's recent passing. In contrast to his normal steely demeanor, Woods was a bit of an emotional wreck the first 2 days. On one fateful day, he bogeyed his first 3 holes and never recovered. Sure, he bounced back at his next tournament, but he still missed the cut. And this was when he was the Tiger Woods. Back then, he was at the top of his career and was just having a rough few days. But when we fast forward to his 2015 meltdown, Woods was a player dealing with many injuries and off-the-course drama. Plus, he hadn't won in a major competition since the US Open in 2008. You can imagine the kind of hit your ego takes with that. And it was clear to see. Woods shot a career worst 85 in the 3rd round of that competition, finishing 14 over par to close the weekend in 71st place. Oof. Now, I wouldn't be doing justice to this video if I didn't talk about Phil Mickelson. The guy was known as the greatest player to never win. That was until he won the Masters and US Open in 2004, the PGA Championship in 2005. Luck wasn't on his side this one fine day though. Lefty was 1 hole away from capturing his 3rd straight major at the 2006 US Open. All he needed was a par to defeat Jeff Ogilvy. Instead of adopting a cautious strategy, Mickelson smacked a tee shot. The only problem? A tree stood in his way, making it challenging for him to hit his 2nd shot. Instead of hitting a low shot back onto the fairway, he tried to hit it around the tree. Guess what happened next? Didn't work. Duh! Mickelson made a double shot on the hole and went on to lose the competition by 1 stroke. It's often referred to as Phil's lost US Open. And Jeff Ogilvy went on to win his only major championship. An upset and a meltdown for the history books. From Phil Mickelson's unlucky stroke costing him a championship, to McIlroy's disappointing performance at the 2011 Masters. These are all the biggest meltdowns in PGA history.